Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about my testimony. Now, I believe that everybody has a testimony, everybody has a story, and my story is a little bit more like, it's different. So it's not like I've drank or like I was in drugs or anything radical, but it was something that I did go through. Like I said, it's not a crazy testimony, but I feel like whenever God glorifies in your life, it's a moment to glorify God, a moment to, shine His light. And, everything that I mentioned in this video, it's not about me, it's not about my own strength, but it's by God. And, just a little disclaimer here, a lot of it does have to do with my father. So, I'm not putting any shame, anything like that on my father. This is just my story. And yeah, if you guys are interested in watching the rest of this, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you guys are new. And let's get into the video. All right, so a little backstory about myself. I was born in Los Angeles, and I was raised by both of my parents, and they were both very young when they had me. My mom was about like 18 years old when she first got pregnant, and my father, I think he was a little bit older, but he was still young. He was like 21. I don't remember, but he was a few years older than my mom. So, they only knew each other for 3 months. Like, they met each other in the apartment complex, and literally 3 months in, they had me, little old me. So, yeah, so they didn't know too much. They didn't know themselves too much. So I was not born into the Christian faith during this time. We were considered Catholics, but honestly, we really wouldn't go to church as often. We just went to church just cause our family came from a line of Catholics, like his side, my dad's side, and my mom's side. So we just considered ourselves Catholic, but we didn't know too much about God or anything like that. We didn't have a relationship with God during that time. But, my parents during that time, them being young, they would go out to dance. My parents were never the one to drink. They were not that type of people, but something that they did like and they did enjoy each other was just dancing and partying, and, that was pretty much my life, just that they were just dancing, and that was the only time I saw them happy. But inside of the house was a different story. There was a lot of fighting involved. I remember sometimes my dad putting his hand on my mom. Just a lot of yelling, a lot of violence. They both had very strong tempers, but my dad, more than anything, he was the one that had a very strong character. Like, his anger was not good. Like, it was bad. And me, I was always, very close to my mom, and it hurt me to see my mom crying all the time in pain. Not only that, my dad was a very jealous man. There was just a lot in him that was just so, I don't know, he was just so built with anger. Like, he had so much anger in him. I don't know why, but he just had that violent character. So, sometimes I would honestly just, sometimes like defend my mother, just because I didn't like seeing my mom go through that. I would even convince her to not be with my dad anymore, just because I couldn't handle seeing that pain, not only to my mom, but I also felt the pain as well. There was some, physical abuse going on, but it wasn't too extreme. But yes, there would be times that my dad would put his hands on my mom. Like, when I was little, I couldn't really do anything, but then as I started growing up, I was just like, no, let me step in. I'm not letting my dad touch my mom. Like, nope, that's a no-no to me. During the time, like I did mention, we would go to a Catholic church, and we would just go there to be good people. Like I said, we didn't know anything about God. We had heard about God, but we didn't have that relationship with God yet. So we would go to church, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I would fall asleep in there. Like, me as a child, okay, like, you understand, like, oh, like, when you're a kid, you're just like, what the heck is going on? I want to go home, I want to go to sleep, and I never liked church that way. Like, I honestly didn't. I was always interested in who God was. I did have that, like, little, like, I was, like, a little curious of, like, who is this God? Or, so on and so forth. And, when I would go to Catholic church, they never, from what I remember, what I knew of, they never had, like, a kids class or anything like that. So I would just stay in the service, and person would talk, and I would fall asleep. And, no hate, by the way, to, any Catholic people watching, but this is just my side of my story, like I said. And, like, we would just, like I said, we just went to church until one day my aunt from my mom's side, she actually, became Christian, and she actually invited us to a church out in California, in Van Nuys. And so we went. She actually told us that, oh, it's a very nice service, hope you guys can come, and they actually take care of kids if you guys are interested. And when I heard that, I was all like, they took care of kids? So I'm all like, I just kind of pushed my mom. I'm like, Mom, let's go. I'm just kind of curious to see, like, let's go. I want to know. I'm curious, like, what's going on? What do they do there? So we went, and and the first day was very, very nice. It was really cool. Like, they actually taught me about God and who God was, or like just little Bible stories that they had. And I was just very, very, like, interested all that time. I'm like, like, I came out really happy, really excited, because I feel like I learned something a little bit about the Bible, at least. And my mom said she felt really happy as well. So, so we went out, and, we actually got invited again, like, because they had other services the following week, and then the next week, and my aunt kept inviting us to come back. Now, the church was a little far from where we were living at. We were living in a place called Lancaster to Van Nuys, so that's like an hour and 25 minutes, probably, perhaps, distant. So, but we would still be so eager to go, so we would go. And there was this one Sunday service that I remember we accepted God into our heart. Then, we got more into Christ. And yeah, and ever since then, like, we haven't stopped. We were just so fascinated, so in love. Like, we were in our first love. We were just so excited for this new life, for this new chapter that God had for us. And we were just looking forward to what God was going to do in our lives, going on. We thought everything, our whole world changed. Like, we saw, like, rainbows and butterflies. Like, we were just so happy that we were able to know God and accept God in our heart. Now, all that sounds very pretty and everything, but there's still one thing that we still had to deal with, and that was with my father. So, although we had, God, and we had invited God into our hearts, we had God, we were just so excited to share the good news to my father, like, hey, we actually accepted God into our hearts, and, we were just kind of invite him to church and tell him a little bit about it. And let me tell you, my dad did not like it. He just didn't like the fact, I don't know what it was, but he just didn't like it. He just didn't agree, to be honest. Like, he did not like it. He wasn't too happy. Like, if anything, it was 10 times worse than how it was before. So many battles with my dad that he didn't like the fact that we were going to church. And he would just always, I remember actually even before going to church, like, he would be like right at the door before leaving, like he would be yelling, and he would just be like, no, like, why are you guys going to church? You guys are trying to see somebody else. And all these things that the enemy was trying to stir up in our family, because the enemy knew that we had found peace at last, and he knew we found something very, very special. And that was honestly the main attack that we had, like such a suffering that we had to go through with my dad. And many of the times I honestly just didn't, I wanted my mom to leave my dad. I'm all like, Mom, I can't, I was just kind of confused with what was going on. I'm just like, no, like this man doesn't want to change. We even introduced him to God and he still doesn't want to change his ways. Like, come on now. And I was actually the age of 8 that I turned when I first became Christian. I forgot to mention that. I walk in Christ, during my walk with Christ, I shared God everywhere I went. I was very committed when I became Christian. Like, I was 8 years old when I became Christian, and I was still in elementary during that time, but it was such a joy to have in my life that I wanted to share the same joy to other people. So I would share it from my elementary days to middle school to high school. Like, I was not ashamed of sharing God. Like, I really was not. Like, I always loved, sharing God to other people. And, I even in middle school was like one of the times that I really got made fun of so many times. Like, I didn't even care, to be honest. Like, I just had so much love for God, and I just wanted people to know who God was. I mean, I wasn't anyone to shove God down their throat, but I was just so excited to share about God that I wanted people to feel the same thing as I was feeling. So, I even got called names, that Vanessa girl, that Jesus girl, that Jesus freak. Oh, and then the most famous nickname that they gave me was Holy Vanessa. So I was just made fun of throughout my entire school years, but I would always pray for them. I would always, I would always just pray for them, and I honestly didn't really care. Like, during my times, I did mention to the whole world pretty much about God, and but there was something that people didn't know about me. It was that I was going through things in my own home. I was going through such a harsh battle. I remember during my sophomore year of high school, that's when it was a difficult year for me. High school and sophomore and senior year, but mostly sophomore year was my difficult time, just because so I wasn't the brightest in school. Like, I was never like the most intelligent person, or I kind of always struggled as a young kid with doing good and having good grades and things as that. Like, that's just not me. Like, I'm more of like that creative person. I'm more like, I love to create. If anything, on my electives I always got A's, but my other stuff like mathematics, don't count on me. But going back, I wasn't the most intelligent person during that time, and my dad was always the type of person that was very strict, like on top of me, and if I didn't get the grades good, like he would get so mad. And he just wanted a better future for me. Now that I'm older, I understand, but the way he approached me was not the best way. So there's a time in my sophomore year, like I had actually came back from school, and during this time, that's when they were that's when they were sending out all the report cards to our mail. Now, I just came back home, and I just went to my room, and I was like taking out some stuff from my backpack. All of a sudden, I hear like some loud footsteps marching to my room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do this time? Like, what did I do? And it was my dad, and he comes like really, really pissed, like angry, and he was just yelling at me and cussing at me and calling all these names, and just he was just he had the report card in his hand, he was just like, I see that you're doing bad and this and this and that and that and that and this. And he's like, you don't do anything right. No sirves para nada. Like in English, it's like, you don't work for anything. Like just making me feel so unworthy, you know. And he was just telling me all the most horrible things ever. And I was just like, whoa, okay. You know, and I, you know, till this day, kind of like, it's just crazy. Like just reliving that moment is just really crazy. But, you know, he was just yelling at me, and, you know, I just stayed quiet. I was just like, okay. And then he left, you know, he finished just yelling at me and he left. And I just stood there and I started crying. Like I was crying so bad. I was just like, why, God? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to allow him, you know, to keep putting me down as a human being? Like, why? And then I started to believe that, what if I am dumb? What if I have some type of something that I am not aware of? Like, what if I'm really like that stupid, you know? Like, I just started taking all those words and I'm like, why can't I ever do good in school? And keep in mind, I would actually go to tutoring. Like, I would stay after school just to get good grades. And like, none of that worked. And I just felt like, why can't I focus? Why can I not, like, you know, why? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm your child, God. Like, I am a child of God. Like, you know, am I not supposed to be smart? Am I not supposed to do good in school? Like, why do I keep failing my dad? Why do I keep failing myself, you know? And I began to grow a hate within myself, and I began to grow a hate with my dad. Like, I was just hating everything about myself, everything. I hated what I did. I hated myself to the point that I became so, like, you know, negative, and no one knew that. No one knew that at school, because everybody knew that I was that, oh, shining, happy Christian that's always happy and always talking about God, and, you know, they're not supposed to show their, you know, their their problems or share their problems with other people. So that's why I always stayed quiet, and I never like try to show that to other people, because I didn't want them to think that, oh, you say you're God, you know. I just didn't want them to think that about God, and I didn't even know what was going on during that time either. I was honestly disappointed with God as well, you know, for no reason. But, you know, it was just really a very sad time for me, that I actually became very depressed. I started, you know, to listen to music that was just talking about my loneliness, how I wanted to feel loved, how I wanted to feel cared for, how, you know, just so on and so forth. And I even began to cut myself. Nobody really knew that I began to cut myself. I began to cut myself. I would even, like, I remember this one time, like, I went to the kitchen and I actually grabbed a knife, and I was just like holding it in my hand, and I was just like, how can I kill myself? Like, how, like, I was just thinking, like, how can I kill myself? How can I, you know, like, I was just thinking, like, plotting, like, I was just holding it, but then I kind of got a little scared, and I was like, no, I put it down. But I was plotting on how, you know, I would have those suicidal thoughts. I would kind of think, I'm all like, if I just end my life now, everything would be so much better. I wouldn't give my dad so much pain. I wouldn't give anybody else so much pain. You know, like, I would actually be at peace. You know, I wouldn't be a disturbance to anybody. And by the way, who wants a stupid person in this world? Like, I don't think anybody stupid would be useful. So, you know, no one needs a stupid person in this world. So I would just plot my death, and I would just think, and I remember, like, crying myself to sleep because I thought I was not enough. I thought I was so stupid. I thought I was just, this is it. Like, there's no cure for this. There's nothing else. And, you know, at that point, I didn't think, honestly, a Christian can be depressed. I didn't know that was possible. And I just felt like if I shared this with somebody else, somebody would make fun of me or just look down on me. And I was just already feeling bad about myself, so I didn't want to tell anybody else about this. So, I just kept it to myself. But honestly, I was really close to my suicidal thoughts kept going deeper and deeper each day, until one day I was actually in school, and it was during my lunch, and I was just hanging around with my friends during lunch, and actually my mom had texted me that that she was here to pick me up. I was just a little confused. I'm like, okay, why are you here to pick me up? So I go, and my mom actually, she's like, hi, how are you? And just being so sweet and asking how I'm doing and this and this and that. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. And she's like, oh, I'm actually gonna take you out to eat. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, is she okay? She took me out to eat. And I remember actually we were talking before we went inside the restaurant. We were actually talking, and she was all like, Vanessa, I was actually in your room, and I saw your iPad there, and I don't know why, but I feel like the Lord just made me grab your iPad. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And she's all like, well, I opened your iPad and I just found so much music, so much depressing music that you had in there. And honestly, it broke my heart. And that's why that's why I took you out today, because I don't know, you're going through something. You're having a time of loneliness. And she was just, honestly, God just used her. I just started crying. I was crying. And my mom, she was just telling me everything, what the Lord had told her, and I was just kind of shocked. And I was just like, wow. I was like, wow. Wow. And me and my mom just started talking, and I opened up everything to her, how I've been feeling, how I wanted to kill myself, how depressed I was, how much I hated myself, and how much I hated my dad too. But during this time, I feel like I hate myself even more than my dad during that time. So, she prayed for me, and I felt relieved. I felt much better. And, I started picking myself back up, and I kind of just slapped myself into reality. I started realizing that this is the lie from the devil. How can I be unworthy? How can I be unvaluable? No, I have a purpose. I have a calling in my life. And, God can do anything. God can use anybody. I honestly thought my mom was kind of tripping, because I'm like, oh, what's my mom? But no, God can use anybody. God came in the perfect time to speak, to use my mom to tell me. So, I started praying again like I used to, because I did stop praying for a while, and I was just letting that depression feed my soul. And I would cry every night, and I would let that feed me too. And I went nowhere with that. And I just started praying more. I started reading the Bible again, and I just started to allow God to pick me back up again. And and I even apologized to God, because I'm all like, God, at the end of the day, this was not your fault, God. This is nothing that you wanted for me. God never wants the worst for you. He always wants the best for you. But there's the enemy that always wants to destroy you, to destroy the great purpose that God has for you. And during that time, the enemy knew my weakness. He knew my weakness during that time, that my self-esteem was already low enough. He knew that was my weak spot. And I allowed all that depression to get more sad, and to get more and more sad. I picked myself back up again, and I felt it was a healing to myself. It took me a while to love myself. It honestly did. It took me a long time to start loving myself. And I probably say like 3 years or even more for me to love myself. Actually, even during the time of my senior year, like I actually almost never graduated either, because we had to take this test. It's called the CASI in California. This test, it's your high school exit exam, and if you didn't pass it, you didn't walk the stage. Now, my dad didn't know about this guy. I didn't want to like make him feel any worse. And during that year too, like it took me 6 times for me to pass my permits test. 6 times. It took me 3 times to take my exit, 4 times, I don't remember, 3 or 4 times, but I felt like it was a long time to pass my exit exam. And then it took me 6 times to pass my driving permit, all in 1 year. Like I was just, and I'm not gonna lie, like that depression would come back and go and back and go and back and go, and like all these thoughts, like it's just the battle that you go through in your mind, like you just gotta keep fighting it and pushing forward, because the enemy will try to do anything to put you down. And no, we are warriors. We cannot be letting the enemy put us down like that at all. No. So, like I was praying, my mom was praying for me during that year, my senior year. I was just declaring the word of God over my life like no other day. This is one day that my uncle, he actually gave me a verse. It was like a printed out paper verse, and he just gave it to me and actually one of my friends. And I just looked at, honestly, I just looked at the verse. I'm like, oh, that's nice, cool. And I actually, I took the paper in and I actually taped it on the back of my door, but I didn't really think too much of it. And then until one day I kind of just stood there and read it, and it says, I have it here, it's actually Psalms 37, 3-4. And it says, trust in the Lord and do good. Live in the land and be safe. Seek your happiness in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desire. That verse was the verse that helped me graduate. Like I declared that verse over my life. My heart's desire was to graduate. My heart's desire was to pass that test. And with God, nothing is impossible. With God, nothing is impossible. You have to declare the word out loud. You have to live the word, believe it, confess it, have that faith. Have that faith. If you're actually going through a moment that you feel like you can't anymore, and you have something that you're asking God, or you're something that you're going through mentally, pray to God, ask God, seek God, ask him, God, what can you do for me? I know there's nothing impossible for you, God. There's nothing that you cannot do for my life. I trust in you, God. I believe in you. I confess the word that you have given me, and I put that word into existence and into living the word. Because sometimes we could just read the word. We can just read the Bible, or just like, oh, we have it there just for decoration. But no, the Bible's not just for decoration. The Bible's not just for, just having it get dust up. No, the Bible is to practice it, to believe it. That's why God gave us the word, because the word is so powerful. There is so much power when you pray and you read his word, and boom, let me tell you, there is a spiritual warfare going on. That's the way that you're gonna make the devil tremble. That is the way that you're gonna make all those demons flee. When you put on your sword and you pray and you put on the armor of God and you believe and you trust, like when the people in the battlefields are getting ready to fight, they have that confidence, they have that authority, they know they're gonna win. The same way we gotta get ready. We gotta have that authority. We gotta have that confidence, because remember, God has not given us a mind of fear, so low self-esteem. No, that's a lie from the devil. God did not give that to us. It says in the word of God in Isaiah 41:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's what the word of God says. I know I got a little sidetracked. I was just feeling it. But don't let the lies of the enemy get into your head. That's a lie. You're not made to fail. No one's stupid on this earth. No one is dumb. We all have a different talent. We all have a different way of, dealing with things. We're all so different. Now, moving on forth, I know because I'm making this video a little long, but moving on forward, I was able to graduate, glory to God. I passed my driver's permit and my exam, glory to God. But there was still something that I still had. I felt like I was healed within myself, but I felt like there was something that I still need. Like, I forgave myself a bit, but there was something that I still needed to forgive to be completely free, and that was to forgive my father. During those times, those years had passed by, and the same thing was going on with my dad. The same thing, the same yelling, the same crying. It's like he had to cut my heart open, and then, I get healed, and then again, and then, going back and forth. But, it was just a constant battle. Honestly, it was a constant battle. And I honestly did grow a hate for my dad. I kind of became bitter around, I was very bitter around my dad. I was happy when he was not home. I was happy, I hated hearing his voice. I couldn't stand him being in the house. I didn't want to be around my dad. I didn't want to say hi to my dad. I didn't want to say bye to my dad. I wanted to completely ignore him. I would ignore him, but sometimes he would come and bug me, oh, you're gonna say hi to me or this and that. But I just grew that bitterness with my dad. I couldn't stand my dad. I honestly hated my dad because of all the damage that he has done to my life, all the emotional damage that he has done to me and to my mom. So I just really couldn't stand my dad. But, there's this one day that I actually went to church, and, which I didn't really, I don't know, I just walked in there. But in the past, I was just kind of, praying for me to forgive my dad. It had been years that I was praying to God, but God's timing is always perfect. So I remember I actually went to church, and there was actually a sister preaching about bitterness, and she was just explaining the root of bitterness and so on and so forth, just kind of that type of topic. And I never realized that I was bitter that way. I didn't know I had that, and I don't know, that message just touched me so profound. I was bawling my eyes that day. I was bawling my eyes. That day was a day that I, forgave my dad 100%, because there would be times yeah, I forgive my dad. Yeah, I forgive my dad. And then the same thing would happen. He would scar my heart again. That day I felt so free. I felt so free. I even went up to my dad, and I couldn't even hug my dad before. I couldn't even kiss him because I just couldn't stand him that bad. That's how bad I didn't really like my dad. But I asked him, I'm forgive me for, not loving you, or just, forgive me. And I told him, I forgive you for hurting me. I forgive you for everything that I went through. And, I just started, telling, apologizing to my dad, and, I felt so free. I felt so healed. I didn't really I wasn't bothered with my dad anymore. I learned to love my dad, even when it was difficult. I just learned to love my dad. And, he's human. He's human like all of us. He's human like you and me. He makes mistakes. I make mistakes too. But, I feel sometimes we held in so much grudges, and we become the victim. We think that, oh, this person hurt me, or this person did, I'm not going to forgive them. Because I honestly did have that mindset. But I would actually pray to God to take that away from me, because I knew that wasn't right. And God delivered me from that. And, I challenge you to if you're struggling with something, with bitterness, with anger, with, low self-esteem, depression, suicidal thoughts, God is just knocking in your heart right now. I strongly believe that, like I said, this message is not about me. This message is about, God healing you, God calling you to become better, because God doesn't want you to feel the way you are. God doesn't want you to feel worthless. God doesn't want you to feel nothing, loneliness. I felt so much loneliness throughout my life. I felt so much, there's so much things that I can just sit here and talk about, little things that has happened to me in my life that, there's so much, but I probably talk about that another time. But, so my point is that, put your trust in God. Don't let that go by. Don't let that time go by and, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 10 years from now, you're still holding that grudge. You're still holding, that hurt from a past relationship. You're still, holding, whatever your parents did or a friend did. Don't hold that. That's not good. That's not good for yourself, because at the end of the day, like, no matter how much you try to get away from that person, you're not hurting the person, you're hurting yourself. Even if you try to do revenge to that person, you're not hurting the person, you're hurting yourself. You need to heal and recuperate from all the damage that has gone in your heart. And you need to be set free. This is what I had to share today with you guys. This is something that I wanted to share with you guys. A little bit about my personal background. Like I said, there's so many other things I can talk about, so many other battles I've had, so many other testimony that I've had personally. But I think everything that I go through is just to glorify God and what God did in my life. And you think, if you feel like there's no other escape, the escape is God. God is the hope. God is our God. God is a God of hope. He is amazing. When you allow him in your life to change all the things that you need change, he's the only one. No astrology, no, hand reading, none of that works. None of that works. God is the only one that's going to deliver you and make you free from anything that you're holding against, anything that you're feeling emotionally. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really did enjoy making this video and sharing my testimony to you guys. And if you guys are interested in other things and other topics, please let me know down in the comments below. And I am gonna keep going with this YouTube channel. And you guys have a blessed day wherever you guys are at. And don't forget to subscribe. Have a blessed day. Bye.